keep it going in here! Yeah, bitches! Well, top of the morning, lads and lasses, and happy St. Paddy's Day to ya! One of my favorite times of the year, where you can dress green, drink until you're shit-faced, and party like there's no tomorrow. And you know what else is green? I know it's been a while since I made a Ben 10 related video, so welcome to the St. Patrick's Day edition of Infusing Aliens with Elements. So anyways, let's get down to it.
Baloroon.
Starting off is Baloroon, the result of Ben Wolf combined with the element of magic. The name is a combination of Balto, the famous sled dog involved in the Serum Run, as well as Oberon, the fairy king in William Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. Not exactly the best sounding name, but it was the best one I can come up with. So I based this one off of the Scottish mythological Cooshie, or fairy hound. The Cooshie is described as a large, green-furred hound as big as a cow. Lurking in the Scottish Highlands, many Scotsmen feared this otherworldly beast. This thing made its presence known by emitting 3 loud and powerful barks. Those unfortunate enough to hear it must make it to shelter by the 3rd bark, otherwise, it's practically game over. Now for powers and weaknesses. For retained powers, he practically retains most of the abilities that regular Ben Wolf has. For new powers, these include voice projection, which is the ability to project one's own voice at great distances without actually being present. A fearful scream, meaning that his howls can induce a paralyzing or shocking sense of fear in others. Intangibility, the ability to pass through physical matter, and can perform fairy magic, which, as his name suggests, is magic associated with fairies. For retained weaknesses, these include having a sensitive sense of hearing and a detained snout, meaning he can't use his sonic howls if his jaws have been forcibly shut. For new weaknesses, these include iron hypersensitivity, meaning he breaks out in a rash when touching iron objects, his magic can be disrupted and negated, and his magic can be ineffective in certain criterias. I really like the way this guy turned out. However, this guy isn't the only fairy-themed alien we got in store.
Evergreen!
Next up, we have the verdant sprite, Evergreen, the result of pesky dust infusing with the element of wood. So with this one, I wanted to lean more into the fairy aspect. Now, pesky dust is already based on a fairy, but I wanted to go full force into the traditional Celtic fae, specifically a type of fairy known as the sprite. I mean, sprites are considered to be the most common type of fairy, and they live in woodlands. And of course, I obviously designed the wings after the shamrock, or 4-leaf clover, a symbol that is often associated with Ireland, and of course, the symbol of St. Patrick's Day. However, I didn't want to stop at just that. I of course also based it on, a type of alcoholic beverage known as absinthe, or also referred to as the Green Fairy. You'll understand why I chose this particular source of inspiration just a bit. But what can this little guy actually do? Now, the only retained powers he has are flight, enhanced speed via flight, and enhanced agility. Now, new powers include being able to generate and control dust with hallucinogenic effects, as well as the ability to control the hallucinations of his targets. Now, remember the absinthe inspiration I mentioned earlier? Well, that pretty much ties into the misconception that absinthe has hallucinogenic properties. And of course, another new ability I decided to give him is the ability of creating sparkles that have a rather mesmeric effect, meaning anyone that sees these sparkles becomes so transfixed by them. Kinda like that one scene in Finding Nemo where Dory and Marlin traveled so deep in the ocean and they encounter an anglerfish. This ability can be proved useful when he's facing against some really tough opponents. I pretty much got the mesmerizing sparkle ability due to the fact that how fairies often appear in balls of light. Now as far as weaknesses are concerned, his retained ones are that his abilities are ineffective against technological or robotic opponents, and his small size can prove to be quite the disadvantage, especially against larger opponents. With new weaknesses, he is hypersensitive to iron objects and can be pushed back by strong winds. But just like Pescidus, this little green bugger is not somebody you'll want to mess with. But now let's take a deep dive with our next entry.
Jetness!
Next we have the cold-blooded mariner, Jetness, the combination of Astrodactyl and the element of water. Yeah, the design choice for this one is pretty straightforward, obviously based on the Loch Ness Monster, as well as the movie Water Horse Legend of the Deep. Now the name sounds like a combination of jet and Loch Ness, which probably is, but it's also play on the term jetness, which is the quality or state of being the color jet black. So basically a play on words here. But yeah, once again, design choice is pretty straightforward. Now onto the powers and weaknesses section. Retained powers include enhanced speed, enhanced agility, enhanced strength, enhanced durability, enhanced reflexes, and prehensile feet. For new powers, he could swim at enhanced speeds, he could breathe underwater, he could control and generate water, he could glide, he could project water blasts and water whips, and he could exude a misty breath. With weaknesses, his retained ones are that he is vulnerable to electricity and has a rather limited durability. With new weaknesses, he is no longer capable of flight like Astrodactyl is, he cannot stay on land for too long before ultimately dehydrating, he is vulnerable to strong currents, and he can be immobilized by ice. However, this guy isn't the only one swimming in these waters.
Sea Biscuit.
Next we have the stallion from the sea himself, Sea Biscuit, the product of Unitar combining with the element of water. Now I know that Unitar is not an official alien that Ben uses, but I think this guy is so damn cool I just had to include him. So this guy is obviously based on a seahorse, but is also based on the Scottish mythological Kelpie, a supernatural water spirit that often took on the form of a horse. Yeah, trust me, these damn things will definitely leave you avoiding horse stables or lakes from now on. Cause any poor bastard unfortunate enough to ride one of these things gets dragged into their watery domain and get eaten like a freaking gas station sandwich. Anyhow, an alien based on both a Kelpie as well as a seahorse? Yeah, it just makes so much sense to me. Also, for those who noticed, yes, he is named after the famous racehorse Sea Biscuit. For, powers in general, since, Unitar doesn't really have a lot going for him, he can secrete an adhesive substance, he can breathe underwater, he can swim at high speeds, he has a prehensile tail, the fins on his arms are very sharp, he can spit jets of water, he has enhanced strength and durability, and enhanced agility and enhanced speed while under the water. And for weaknesses, he's not very graceful on land, his sticky skin can be quite an inconvenience at times, and he can be harmed by electricity while it's being conducted by water. So hopefully you got some earplugs for our next entry.
White noise.
Next up, we have the spectral screamer, White Noise, the result of Ghost Freak combining with the element of sound. So, White Noise is based on one of the most famous apparitions of Celtic lore, the Banshee. One thing that Banshees are known for is emitting a very loud, ear-piercing scream. Yeah, a Banshee scream is a sound that's not only gonna scare the ever-loving shit out of you, as well as leave your ears ringing like you got tinnitus, but also warns you that your death is closer than you want it to, or just outright kill you on the spot. But if you think hearing one Banshee screaming is bad, it's even more concerning when a group of these things are heard, as this foretells the death of someone of great significance. Banshees are believed to be the spirits of women who died during childbirth or were murdered, and are described as either beautiful young women, stately matrons, or ratted old hags dressed in grey with long, unkempt hair. But still, I thought a sonically powered Ghost Freak based on a Banshee would make perfect sense. Now for powers, he retains most of Ghost Freak's original abilities. I'll let you pause here just so you can read through them all. Now for new powers, he can hear sounds from outside of normal range of perception, he can scream at ultrasonic frequencies, he can manipulate sound, he can become entirely soundless, as well as make others he touch become soundless, and he can create some rather nightmarish sounds. And trust me, the sounds that he makes are absolutely horrifying. I'll play some examples, but keep in mind they're pretty disturbing. So for those who don't want to hear them, I'll just leave a timestamp here. Now for weaknesses, retain ones including that his invisibility and intangibility can be neutralized by certain substances, his intangibility is useless against other intangible foes, and when invisible, he can be tracked by enemies that sense heat or use thermographic vision. As for new weaknesses, his sonic screams can unintentionally hurt the ears of his allies. But white noise isn't the only horror show we have in store.
Outbreak!
Next up, we have the pestilent jockey, Outbreak, the combination of skid marks and the element of poison. So this one is of course based on one of the most fearsome creatures of Celtic lore, the Knuckleavi. Oh yeah, you thought banshees were terrifying? Then this thing will definitely make you wish you were dead. Just looking at this thing is enough to know that this thing is piss your pants material. But this thing doesn't just look scary as all 9 circles of hell. Its demeanor is just as shit your pants inducing as its appearance. Found in the Orkney Isles, this thing was the bane to everyone's existence. This thing had a deadly breath that can cause crops to wilt, livestock to turn sick and die, and leave kids dead and cold in their cribs. But then again, I thought the Knuckleavi was a perfect source of inspiration for a combination like this. Now for powers, well, just powers in general, since Skid Marks only has one ability, which is Enhanced Speed, which Outbreak does inherit. These include Night Vision, Miasma Emission, meaning he can create toxic gases, Poison Breath, Virokinesis, meaning he controls diseases, Disease Immunity, Toxin Immunity, and he has a sharp tail and claws. As far as weaknesses are concerned, he has a fear of water, he has a strong sense of disgust towards seaweed, the diseases he controls and manipulates can be negated or cured, and is vulnerable to foes that are resistant to poison or diseases. But what could be worse than a walking pandemic? Well, how about an alien hellhound? Next up, we have the hellish hound, Basker, the result of wild mud combining with the element of hell. So Baskerville is based on Black Shook, a creature described as a large black dog in shaggy fur and glowing red eyes. And Black Shook is often described as an omen of death. So yeah, you could try and play dead, but it's not gonna help. And yes, the name is reference to the Sherlock Holmes story, The Hound of the Baskervilles. Now for powers, he practically retains all the natural abilities that Wildmud has. I'll let you pause here just so you can read through it all. For new powers, he can generate and breathe hellfire, he has glowing eye spots on his head. Yes, those are eye spots, not actual eyes. He can turn invisible as well as become intangible, he has a sharp tail, and he can induce fear in his enemies. For weaknesses, he can't speak in human languages, only able to speak in barks and snarls, is sensitive to loud noises due to his hyper sense of hearing, and when infected with a cold, his olfactory senses are gummed up, making him practically blind as a bat. As for new weaknesses, he has a stronger version of silver and is easily disgusted by garlic. But I saved the best for last, and it's go big or go home with our final entry. Hopefully you've got an umbrella or a raincoat with you.
Thunderclap.
Last but not least, we have the giant who can bring on the thunder, Thunderclap. The combination of way big and the element of electricity. So, Thunderclap is inspired by two things. First being Tyrannus, the Celtic god of thunder in the sky, and secondly being the storm giants from Dungeons & Dragons. Tyrannus' name is derived from the Proto-Celtic term Tyrannos, which literally translates to thunder. There have been many art pieces depicting him wielding a thunderbolt in one hand and a wheel in the other. In fact, he's even associated with the wheel, just like the Greek cyclops named Brontes, whose name also means thunder. In fact, Brontes was the one who forged Zeus's thunderbolts. Just a bit of a fun fact. In summary, Tyrannus is kind of like the Celtic equivalent of the Greek god Zeus. Now onto the power section, he retains most of Waybig's abilities. Again, I'll pause here just so you can read through it all because I really don't feel like reading it all for you. As for new abilities, he can generate and control electricity, project lightning bolts, create and control storms, and can fly. For weaknesses, retained ones are being that his massive size can make him very clumsy and graceless, and can be taken down by smaller enemies without even noticing. For new weaknesses, he can accidentally create storms through strong emotional outbursts, he is vulnerable to foes that can absorb electricity, and can be harmed by electricity while it's being conducted by water. Well, hope you guys enjoyed, and have a happy St. Oh hell yeah, I'm game!
There hasn't been a soul yet who can beat me at my own game. So you better bring the fire, baby!
Oh, it's on, bitch! I've managed to drink Dionysus under the fucking table. This'll be a cakewalk!